Hello everyone, Johnny Hurricane here, and today we're going to talk about Battlefield 1. Bringing an FPS back to World War I is a concept that most people would have laughed at last gen. With the upcoming release of Battlefield 1, EA and DICE tried to recapture the essence of what helped make the FPS genre what it is today. We dove into the open beta, and here are our impressions. I'll be the first to admit, I haven't played a Battlefield game in years. I think the last one I honestly played was 3, and even then the last one I really got into was Battlefield 1942. Battlefield 1 plays like your typical FPS shooter. Aim and shoot. Easy enough, right? Where it changes things up is in the class and battle mechanics. During the open beta we had access to all the classes but limited access to the equipment and weapons. You can pick from the Assault, Medic, Scout, and Support class. All play differently and all have different weapons and equipment. Assault is your up-close and personal class with equipment for bringing down vehicles. Medic plays the front lines while healing and reviving allies, but also has good range on their rifles. Support is the heavy weapon class and brings extra ammo to allies and can place anti-infantry mines. And lastly, the Scout, the sniper class that is designed to take out enemies from afar. There's also special classes you can pick up from the battlefield that give your team the edge. For instance, you can pick up the flamethrower and you can use that to clear out buildings or tight alleys or corridors. The problem with this system is the limitation it imposes on players. I love the Medic's rifle, but I also wanted to bring anti-vehicle equipment for when I ran into tanks or jeeps. This is nothing new to the Battlefield series, but it just feels like a dated mechanic to me. During the beta we were able to play on one map, the Sinai Desert, and play two modes, Conquest and Rush. Conquest is the big map mode with 48 players duking it out, and Rush mode is a smaller section of the map with more up-close and personal battles. We spent most of our time on Conquest, which consisted of capturing and holding points A through G. It's a pretty basic concept, and one undoubtedly familiar to fans of the franchise, but as with every other first-person shooter, players would rather rack up kills instead of capturing the points. This was often the case during a match. One side would lose, but their top player would go 21-0 or something like that. Part of the problem is the lack of communication. You can only communicate within your squad, and even then you can't use voice chat. Outside of points, there isn't really an incentive to listen to your squad leader either. The easiest way to avoid this is to group up with players you know, but that isn't always a viable option. I'm not sure there is a solution to getting players to drop the whole KD thing without completely getting rid of the stat altogether. It's annoying, but eventually you learn to just do what you can to try and win. Vehicles play a huge role in Conquest, and the team that better manages them typically wins. There are planes, tanks, horses, as well as jeeps and gunner cars that can help you get around the battlefield. Horses are quick and agile, tanks are slow and bulky, and planes are just overall powerful. Tanks, planes, and jeeps are a pretty common thing in wartime video games, but horses are a bit more rare. They are fun but difficult to use. You're vulnerable from all angles, and you sit much higher while you're on a horse. You can also cover a lot more distance, and if you're close enough, the Saber Strike is a one-shot kill. It takes patience to be a good cavalry rider, but it is worth it. Tanks, on the other hand, are a little too strong on the ground. Unless you're engaging in direct tank versus tank combat, odds are you won't go down unless a pro pilot drops some bombs on you. This is something that will need to be addressed before the game comes out. Tanks should be strong, but people need options when taking them down. If I wasn't playing the Assault class when I ran into a tank, I knew it would be over. Normal grenades do some damage, but you really need the anti-tank weapons such as mines or dynamite, which are exclusive to the Assault class. All too often I would spawn in as a tank at the beginning of a match and finish an entire match without a single death, even when sitting on objectives the entire time. I'm not some pro tank driver, anyone is capable of doing it if they play smart. There are also large behemoth vehicles in the game that attempt to give the edge to the losing side during a match. During the beta there was this giant armored train with AA guns and cannons that rides around to a few of the objective points. It's a nice feature in some cases, but again, players would just like to sit in the train and rack up kills instead of going after the objectives. You can destroy the behemoth as the opposing team with enough effort, though that requires teamwork which oftentimes isn't there. My biggest issue with the mechanic is how early in the match you can get it. After 5 minutes, if a team is down 50 points, it will spawn. That gives the other team 10 minutes to turn things around. A well-coordinated team can use this to gain the lead in 5 minutes and then dominate for the remainder of a match. Just another feature that clearly needs a little bit more balancing. Lastly, I want to talk about the servers. Day 1 had some issues from the DDoS attack which kept the servers down for a pretty good amount of time. Day 2, PSN was hacked, so I can't really fault EA on that one. Now every time I get on, I have to wait a few minutes before I connect, and I'm not alone in that. The game is less than 2 months out and they're still having server issues. I'd say, hey, it's a beta, that's what you should expect, but at the same time, if you don't sort this out now, then when? It's been much better since the first 2 days, but I do still get kicked every now and then. Overall, I'm actually having a pretty good time with Battlefield 1. There are some balancing and server issues that need to be addressed before the game hits, but hopefully that's why they're having this beta. See you all on the front lines in October.